Hello, my name is Jasleen Singh, and I'm here to explain the breakdown of my dream project. The focus of my dream project for this semester was to do a brain biology unit for AP Psychology. The reason that I decided to do this unit is because it's very, very heavy in vocabulary. So it's very easy for students to get overwhelmed, but yet it constitutes for about 7 to 10% of the AP Psychology exam in May, so it's crucial for students to know it. So to give you a comparison of the vocab words, it's like usually there will be 30 to 40 words per unit, but this particular unit has 50 to 60. So again, students get really overwhelmed. So the way that I used to teach this unit was very like rote memorization. Heavy, so I would show PowerPoints, have students take notes on it, and then be expected to just memorize it and then be able to spew out the information. But as we know as educators, that's not really learning. So I wanted to make this unit a lot more interactive for students to actually engage with the material rather than just digesting it from a very teacher-heavy point of view. So again, as an example of my old materials, this is an example of a PowerPoint that I would show. This particular PowerPoint is just covering right and left hemispheric functionality. So what the left hemisphere of the brain does versus the right hemisphere. So it's very, again, into just teacher giving, the teacher giving information and students just accepting it, not really interacting with it. So I decided to change things up. I broke down this very heavy unit into specific days so students would have to digest the material in very much smaller pieces. So they actually would have less of a likelihood of reaching their cognitive overload. I decided to also allow for students to prevent from getting to their overload point. I decided to structure each lesson to be the same so their extrinsic load could be minimized so they could focus on the key vocabulary or key information that is aligned with each lesson. So for example, if we go to day one, and almost every day is set like this except for a project that I put in the middle just to kind of break things down so students can interact with the material even more to personalize it to themselves. But for every day, I have students watching an Edpuzzle. Then they'll take notes using a note-taking guide with an associated either website that's very textual in nature or a simulation. So I'll show examples of both. And then they'll end each lesson with a quizzes. The quizzes allows them to interact with actual AP Psychology questions so they know what the format would be like and what type of questions they're expected to know for the exam in May. So the Edpuzzle, the reason I chose Edpuzzle is because instead of students just blindly just watching a YouTube video or an associated video that's with the lesson, I'm able to break it up and ask students specific questions about the video. So that way they're more likely to remember what they're interacting with. So an example here is, I love Crash Course Psychology videos for this class. So I used one to kind of introduce some of the key vocabulary. So this is an example. So students would watch maybe the first minute, a question would pop up. And I really like Edpuzzle too because as soon as if I go to another window, the video will just stop. So students actually have to be interactive with the video as in their front line of view in order to answer the questions and then move on with the video. So again, I like using this because it allows students to be interacting with the video. And an example of the note-taking guide, again, you can access them by either clicking here or you could click the actual video here. This one, because there are two different links, I didn't link the picture, but over here underneath the take notes, you could access the guide by clicking here, and then the actual notes that would associate themselves with the note-taking guide are immediately below it. So my note-taking guides, I always chose to do through Google Forms. The reason I like Google Forms is because students are able to get immediate feedback on the information. So even after pressing send, students could like compare their answers to what's expected of them. Or if I manually look it over, I could email them some feedback. I'm a big fan of feedback, and I really like making it super structured towards the student, so they're more likely to learn from their mistakes. And in the note-taking guide too, I didn't want to make it so, again, rote memorization-y. So I did add a couple application questions as well. So again, students are able to interact, and this is an example of what the website would look like. This is one of the more text-heavy ones. Again, I'll show an example of one that's not, but students are able to interact at their own pace. So if they do need to take a little pause to remember it, they're able to do so. So because I showed you an example of my split brain or the hemispheric localization lesson, I'll show you an example of how I changed it up for this. So again, I added a Edpuzzle. This Edpuzzle actually is really interactive for students too, because it allows them, it's from Brain Games, so it allows them to actually like do activities with the video. And then instead of just giving them a PowerPoint and having them take notes directly from it, this is one of the first simulations I put on. So the simulation is kind of cool. So instead of, you know, again, the students just being told what the right brain does versus the left brain, they're able to interact with it. So if you click on the simulation link, students are able to, you know, like see the difference between the right side and the left side of the brain themselves, determine the interaction between the right and the left lobes, and then they're more likely, again, to remember it because they're discovering it for themselves rather than just being told. So here's an example, like if I show heart on one side, students would be able to see like what would happen there. But if I show pig on the other, it's very different. So students would be able to come up with that themselves using the note-taking guide as kind of their reference for what they should be doing. Finally, again, I did put quizzes questions that are based on old AP psychology questions. And again, I like to use this because of the immediate feedback as well. So if students don't do well on the quizzes, they're able to actually redeem themselves through functionalities of this website. And then they're able to retake it too if they want to. So if they don't do so well, they could retest their knowledge. So it's very student-centered, and I think students will be able to gain more from this than, again, the rote memorization. Every day, 1, 2, 3, and 5 through 9 are structured very similarly to this, but day 4 is a little different. Again, I wanted to shake things up a little bit so students are able to not only just interact more with the material, I want them to also internalize the material. So I kind of broke things up. And after they learn a lot of the vocabulary, they'd be able to do a project where I put, I'm a big fan of student choice, so I put some student choices on here for the project. The rubric is attached and some examples. So students are able to just click on it, access the examples directly through the website. And again, they're just images of the examples. And they could read through it too. And these are really exemplars, so students are able to use these as their guide. So that's pretty much it for the student side of things. Really quickly, just for teachers, I did put the website rationale. I did include what cognitive load is in there too. Just to kind of break down the expectations or like the rationale a little bit more of how I made some of these decisions. So some things that happened during this is a lot of the Edpuzzles were actually kind of hard to find. So like some of the more complex things, because I wanted to choose videos also that were in in vocabulary or in language that students would be able to comprehend. I also wanted to prevent them from getting these videos that have the text at the same time as narration, because that would add to their extrinsic loads. So I had to, a lot of times, kind of find pieces of videos myself, break it down, and then edit it to make the questions interact in there. But I actually think that it was more, the fact that I took the time to do that is going to be more beneficial for students because I had their extrinsic loads in mind. Other things that came about is really, I wanted to be really mindful of like design choices. So I wanted to make it really simple in colors and not too heavy in visuals. So when I first did this, I was kind of just like visual happy, adding so much stuff to the background, but decided to take a step back and just make it this like simple black and yellow design. I've read studies that say that students learn more when there's bright colors associated, because it's kind of more attention grabbing. I'm a big fan of the color yellow, so I chose yellow for this website. And that's about it. So I think, one more thing that I decided to do also is to add just more references for students in case they need to access like outside resources to further help them. But yes, you could contact me if you have any questions or any comments. But thank you. Thank you for a great semester and good luck with everything, everyone. Bye.